Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm JADHAV and these are the headlines. Pakistan says it will continue to extend political, diplomatic and moral support to Kashmiris until the realization of their right to self-determination. Visiting the line of control along with foreign media representatives, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said the people of Indian-occupied Kashmir have rejected New Delhi's illegal actions of 5th of August. In Afghanistan, at least 29 people have been killed during an ISIS attack on a prison in the eastern city of Jalalabad. A spokesperson for the provincial governor says more than 50 others were injured, while over 300 prisoners are still at large after the attack. Last night, some 30 ISIS fighters attacked the prison, leading to a mass jailbreak. Iran has warned of consequences following growing calls in the US to extend a 13-year embargo on Tehran expiring in October. Iranian President's Chief of Staff Mahmoud Awaizi said the US attempt to extend arms embargo violates the basic international rules. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the US will introduce a UN Security Council resolution in coming days to prevent embargo from expiring. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan says it will continue to extend political, diplomatic and moral support to the Kashmiris until the realization of their right to self-determination. Visiting the line of control along with the foreign media representatives, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said the people of Indian-occupied Kashmir reject New Delhi's illegal actions of 5th of August. Qureshi said there is a new wave of resentment against the atrocities being committed by Indian occupation forces. Defense Minister Parvez Khattak and National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf accompanied Qureshi to express solidarity with the victims of Indian fightings. Military officials briefed the delegation about the unprovoked ceasefire violations by Indian forces at the line of control. In Pakistan, the Islamabad High Court has allowed the government to once again offer New Delhi to appoint a lawyer for Indian ROS serving terrorist Commander Kulbhushan Jadhav. Islamabad moved the court last month asking it to appoint a lawyer to represent Commander Jadhav after India refused to represent him. The government has assured the court that it will comply and approach New Delhi again through the Foreign Office. The Indian government has been reluctant in filing a review of the death penalty decision under the Review and Reconsideration Ordinance. Jadhav is facing death penalty in court after he was caught operating in Pakistan and confessed to espionage and terrorism in the country. In Afghanistan, at least 29 people have been killed in an attack by ISIS on a prison in the eastern city of Jalalabad. A spokesperson for the provincial governor says over 50 people have been injured in the attack. Some 30 ISIS fighters had attacked the prison with a bomb, leading to a mass jailbreak. The spokesperson said police have recaptured around 1,000 prisoners who had escaped in the chaos. But over 300 inmates are still at large as the security forces regain the control of the prison after an intense exchange of fire with the militants. ISIS has claimed the responsibility for the attack. This comes a day after the Afghan intelligence agency claimed security forces had killed a senior commander of the militants near Jalalabad. A Grand Assembly will convene this week to decide the fate of 400 Taliban prisoners the government has refused to release before intra-Afghan peace negotiations. The state media said the proposed Loya Jirga would convene on August the 7th, and the gathering may last for 3 to 5 days. President Ashraf Ghani suggested convening the Jirga in his address on the first day of Eid. He said his government has no power under the constitution to free the 400 Taliban prisoners involved in serious crimes. The government was required to free 5,000 Taliban inmates in line with the US Taliban agreement. In return, the Taliban have already released 1,000 government soldiers. The Taliban have warned a delay in releasing the prisoners would lead to a continuation of the conflict. Iran has warned the US against extending a UN arms embargo on Tehran. The president's chief of staff, Mahmoud YEMEN, said the US bid to extend arms embargo violates the basic international rules. He said the move is also against the spirit of the 2015 nuclear deal and will have serious consequences. Earlier, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington will introduce a UN Security Council resolution in coming days to prevent embargo from expiring. The embargo is set to expire in October. The US has repeatedly warned that if the embargo on Iran was lifted, it would invoke a provision of the nuclear deal to reimpose all sanctions against Tehran. Yemen's Houthis say the Saudi-led coalition forces have released an oil tanker Dobra detained for nearly 4 months. In a statement, a rebel-controlled Yemen petroleum company said the tanker carrying nearly 26,000 tons of gasoline has reached HOUTHIS port. The company said it is preparing for the start of the pumping and discharging process. It said coalition forces are still holding 16 tankers, including 2 carrying diesel, 2 loaded with domestic gas, while the rest are carrying diesel. The statement says the released amount of gasoline is enough to meet the needs for only 5 days. Coalition forces have not commented on the claim yet. Moving on, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has railed at swelling protests against his rule. At a cabinet meeting, he accused the country's media of inflaming the protests. He said the biased media distorts facts and cheers on the demonstrators. Thousands of Israelis have taken to the streets to demand Netanyahu's resignation over corruption and coronavirus mismanagement. But Netanyahu rejected the demonstrators' call to step down. The global number of COVID-19 cases has crossed 18 million, with the death tally exceeding 688,000. Brazil has reported 541 deaths and nearly 26,000 infections in the last 24 hours, increasing the tally to over 2.7 million. In the US, the death toll has neared 155,000 with over 4.6 million infections. This report has more.
Global markets have started retreating as COVID-19 surge threatens a rollback of economic revival steps and lifting of restrictions. Latin America and now the Caribbean are being hit hard by the virus. Over in Asia, India is the worst hit country, reporting over 50,000 cases daily, while a second wave appears to be gaining momentum in Iran. Philippines is reimposing its lockdown as the country struggles to contain the outbreak with more than 100,000 infections and 2,000 deaths.
I have heard the call of different groups from the medical community for a 2-week enhanced community quarantine, SEQ, in Mega Manila. I fully understand why your health workers would like to ask for such a timeout period. They have been in the front lines for months and are exhausted.
Second coming of the virus in Europe, after spiking in Spain, is now threatening Italy, where cluster infections are emerging. Meanwhile, Britain says it will soon roll out a new coronavirus test capable of detecting the virus within 90 minutes. In Australia, the state of Victoria is imposing its first nightly curfew as it struggles to deal with surging cases.
So there will be a curfew across metropolitan Melbourne from 8 p.m. this evening, and it will run from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. each and every day. And the only reason to be out of your home between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. is to get care, to give care, or to go to and from work or be at work. We can no longer have people visiting others. We can no longer have people simply out and about for no good reason whatsoever.
Meanwhile, in Beijing, An unending string of domestically transmitted cases continues to worry China. South Korea has reported 23 new cases of the coronavirus amid a downward trend in the number of locally infected patients.
Moreover, India has reported over 50,000 daily new cases of the new coronavirus for the fifth consecutive day. The Health Ministry said the country's total cases have crossed 1.8 million, with 771 fatalities overnight, taking the toll to over 38,000. During a cabinet meeting, Health Minister Harsh Vardhan said only 1 in 3 positive cases nationwide were under medical care. After Indian authorities eased the lockdown in several cities across India in July, the number of cases reported has almost doubled. Health Ministry stats show the month of July alone accounted for more than 1.1 million cases in India. India's federal fiscal deficit has also touched a record high $88.5 billion as the country struggles to open up its economy amid a raging pandemic. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the daily new coronavirus cases continue to decline as the country reported just over 300 new infections on the third day of Eid al-Adha. The Health Ministry said 8 more people died in the past 24 hours, raising the total to 5,984. The ministry said out of 280,000 cases detected so far, nearly 249,000 have recovered from the virus. It said there are now over 25,000 active cases in the country, with 1,038 in critical condition. Sindh remains the worst hit province with over 121,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 93,000 cases. In the northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, there are over 34,000 cases detected, while Balochistan recorded over 11,000 cases. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says President Donald Trump will take action in coming days on Chinese software companies. In an interview, Pompeo said Chinese companies feed data to Beijing, posing a national security threat to the U.S. Earlier, Trump said he could ban Chinese-owned video sharing app TikTok in the U.S. U.S. security officials have expressed concern that the app could be used to collect the personal data of the Americans. TikTok has denied accusations that it is controlled by or shares data with the Chinese government. The two countries are at odds over a number of issues, including trade disputes and Beijing's handling of the coronavirus outbreak. A group of 78 migrants have been rescued by a Maltese armed forces patrol boat in the central Mediterranean. Officials said the migrants were taken to the capital city of Valletta. Last week, Maltese authorities had rescued a group of 95 migrants and another group of 63 on 17th of July. One of those migrants later tested positive to COVID-19, and the medical authorities put the whole group in quarantine. Libya says it has detained 55 irregular migrants of different nationalities on the Mediterranean coast of the country. Libya's Interior Ministry said the migrants were caught when Coast Guards raided a warehouse in coastal Zlatan city. The Interior Ministry said 4 women and 6 children were among those held, and 1 human trafficker was also arrested during the operation. The Mediterranean is the most preferred route by migrants from Africa who try to cross into Europe through Italy and Malta. Thousands of illegal immigrants in Libya who are either rescued from the sea or arrested by the authorities remain detained in overcrowded shelters. International Organization for Migration has repeatedly called to shut down these shelters and provide better assistance to these migrants. Spain's firefighters and military emergency personnel are battling to control a wildfire in the Madrid region amid blistering heat. Emergency services said the blaze burned through the night and forced the evacuation of several houses. The services activated level 2 alert as 26 crew of forest brigades, firefighters, and a section of emergency unit fight the blaze. It said the cause of the fire cannot be confirmed yet, which comes amid a heat wave across Europe. Head of the Community of Madrid Fire Guard, Luis Rincon, said the fire is quite unstable at this point. He said the Red Cross has set up a shelter for the evicted people, offering kits for personal hygiene, food and drinks until they can return to their homes. In the U.S., tropical storm Isaias has hit the east coast of Florida state bringing heavy rains and powerful winds in the region. The storm has caused power outages and affected about 27,400 residents in the state. The Hurricane Center said the tropical storm has moved towards the north at a maximum speed of 120 kilometers per hour. It said the storm is expected to regain its hurricane strength as it moves up the east coast of the U.S. and could make a landfall in North or South Carolina. The storm would continue churning up the coast and possibly soaking major cities such as Washington, Philadelphia, and New York on Tuesday. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Lebanon's Foreign Minister Nassif Houthi has resigned from his post, showing concerns over Prime Minister Hassan Taib's policies. He will be replaced by the president's diplomatic advisor, Charles Balwebe. Tendering his resignation, Houthi said the government showed lack of political will to enact reforms in the country. He also criticized Hezbollah, which backs Taib's government. The Prime Minister and the President have accepted his resignation. The World Health Organization has warned that there might never be a silver bullet for COVID-19 despite strong hopes for a vaccine. At a news briefing, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the road to normality would be long. Tedros said all countries must rigorously enforce health measures. He said a number of vaccines are now in phase 3 clinical trials and they are hopeful to have a number of effective medicines. WHO Emergencies Head Mike Ryan said countries with high transmission rates, including Brazil and India, need to brace for a big battle. He said the way out is long and requires a sustained commitment. A 9-year-old Pakistani girl has set a world record by becoming the fastest and the youngest in the world to arrange the elements of the periodic table. Natalia Najm achieved the Guinness World Records title after arranging all the elements of the periodic chart in just 2 minutes and 42 seconds. The previous record was held by an Indian professor, Meenakshi Agarwal, who completed the same task in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Natalia broke the previous record by completing the task with 7 seconds to spare. Her father, Hassan Najm, says his daughter has not received formal schooling and has been educated at home. The young Pakistani girl hopes that her achievement will inspire children around the world to continue taking strides in science and pursue careers in the field. In China, a truck driver has risked his life driving the burning vehicle away from a populated area to make sure no one was caught in a potential explosion. The truck accidentally caught fire following a scheduled tune-up in northeastern Changchun city. Driver Sun Gang drove the burning truck for about 4 kilometers to an open area where the fuel tank exploded. 5 minutes later, he left the vehicle. The surrounding area where the vehicle caught fire was densely populated and there was a gas station nearby. Meanwhile, China's leading automaker gifted Sun one of its flagship trucks in recognition of his selfless act. Making jumps over dirt mounds in her tracksuit and padded helmet, 16-year-old Nagin Afshar is a motocross enthusiast in Afghanistan. More about her passion in this report.
Afshar, born and raised in the Afghan capital, joined the Motorcycle Federation of Afghanistan nearly a year ago to do motocross, an emerging sport in the country. Afshar says she hopes to inspire women of her generation to take alternate paths and show the world another facade of Afghanistan.
I decided to pursue the motocross sport to inspire Afghan women and show that they can do this tough sport as well. I tried to be one of the first women to take this path, and I hope we can encourage others as well.
Despite the uncertainty, the young motocross athlete was resolute in her pursuit of participating and excelling in sports.
The most important issue that should be raised with the Taliban is the freedom and rights of Afghan women. And if they want to violate our rights, we will stand against them and resist. I will not leave my country, and I want to stay here and serve my country.
Afshar's parents are fully in support of her passion. Her mother, 32-year-old Farishta Afshar, is also head of the Women's Committee in the National Motorcycle Federation of Afghanistan.
We cannot say that there is no concern, and we will undoubtedly face challenges, such as now that there are different reactions to women's sports, especially women motorcycling, which is an exceptional sport in Afghanistan. In any case, my husband and I will support her as much as we can, and we want to take Nagin to the highest peaks of success.
Afghanistan's National Motorcycling Federation was established in 2015 and currently has around 600 athletes across Kabul and 14 other provinces in the country. The federation said it plans to travel overseas to participate in competitions scuttled earlier this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken have returned to Earth after a 2-month stay on the International Space Station. The crew's SpaceX Dragon capsule splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico. Voyage was NASA's first crewed mission from home soil in 9 years. Behnken and Hurley reached land following a 21-hour overnight journey aboard Crew Dragon Endeavour. The successful splashdown was a final key test of whether Elon Musk's spacecraft can transport astronauts to and from orbit. The crew spent an hour floating inside the capsule before joint recovery teams from SpaceX and NASA retrieved them for a helicopter trip ashore. The mission was launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center on May the 31st. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. US President Donald Trump has given China's ByteDance 45 days to negotiate a sale of its video blogging app TikTok with Microsoft. In a statement, Microsoft said it will continue negotiations to buy the app by 15th of September. Microsoft said it will also take over TikTok's operations in Canada, Australia and New Zealand if the deal goes through. It said it will ensure that all the private data belonging to TikTok's American users is transferred to and remains in the US. Earlier on Friday, Trump dismissed the idea of a Microsoft sale when he said he will ban the app in the US. Washington said TikTok poses a national security risk because of the personal data it handles. Wall Street stocks have climbed over Microsoft's pursuit of Chinese video sharing app TikTok's US operations and a clutch of its upbeat quarterly earnings report. Tech shares have continued to outperform, with Apple's shares rising over 4%, with Netflix reeling behind. Healthcare and tech sectors were among the top performers in the S&P 500 index. The indices of Nasdaq Composite and Dow Jones Industrial Average also landed in positive territories. Meanwhile, oil prices were stable despite pressure by rising pandemic cases, but supported by positive industry data in Europe and Asia. The Tokyo Paralympics, set to take place next year, will require specific countermeasures against the COVID-19 pandemic. Organizers of the Games say they are faced with the logistical challenge of transporting para-athletes while maintaining safety measures. The Paralympics were due to begin later this month, but have now been pushed back until 2021 due to the pandemic. The Games, featuring thousands of impaired athletes, is set to have 539 events at 22 venues. Games director Hidemasa Nakamura said a time delay will have to be taken into account when moving the para-athletes between venues. Phoenix Suns, Brooklyn Nets and Houston Rockets have won their latest matchups in the National Basketball Association Championship. Devin Booker's 30 points helped the Suns come back from a 15-point deficit and stun the playoff-bound Dallas Mavericks 117 to 115. But the Mavericks still managed to clinch a playoff spot. Caris LeVert scored 34 points as the host Brooklyn Nets recorded a pivotal 118 to 110 victory over Washington Wizards. The Nets have now moved 7 games ahead of Washington in the Eastern Conference. Houston Rockets topped the Milwaukee Bucks 120 to 116 as Russell Westbrook sank 4 free throws inside the final 28.5 seconds. Westbrook scored a team-high 31 points while adding 8 assists. And now the weather situation from around the globe. That is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.